Hello. What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to go over all of the survivability mods inside of the First Descendant and let you know which ones are worth using when I was originally going to do a tier list. However, I've since realized that there's just too much and too many things that could change depending on the situation and depending on the Descendant and depending on the build. So I do have to say that each Descendant requires different tiers of play, different play styles, and above all, different builds for what you're doing with the Descendant. Take this ability, for instance, Frost Road. Frost Road recharges 10% of your shield. So if you build into this, it's very good. And as long as you have over 3,000 shield, I do think it's worth it because most attacks in the game do about 500 to 2,000 damage. So you can mitigate a lot of it with just recovering your shields. If you're about to die, you can activate Frost Road and have a little bit more survivability. It's quite good if you build into shields with Vyessa because of this. Conversely, you can forget all of that and just go straight into damage and stack HP and not care about any of that stuff. This is why a tier list is essentially impossible. These survival modules. Honestly, I wouldn't do any tier lists in this game because there's so many conditional factors. So because of that, get out your way. I have made this lovely spreadsheet. It shows the priority of some of the modules, what they do and their effects, and it also has my opinions on what every character should be. So here, the maximum cooldown you can have without multi-talented, without getting a cracked out reactor, is a 0.815. You can go a little bit higher with a better reactor, but it's really hard to achieve this. So I just kept it at 0.815 because that's what I'm going to use, which would put every cooldown at 0.185 of its original time. So this is what I would use in case I was building into something for cooldown. And then if you are blessed to be able to use multi-talented, you can get it to 0.9 at maximum. But not every character has abilities that you can get to 0.9, so it's not there. That's why it says without multi-talented. So in my head, I group Descendants like this. The HP Descendants are for hit points. They are sort of assisting characters inside of the game. Valby is different because Valby can be a DPS or an HP Descendant. You can go either way. And then the Shield Descendants, in my opinion, these are my opinions, is first Kyle. Kyle has magnetic force, which is equal to 2 times your shield gauge, so you want as much shield as humanly possible because you can recharge it with your own abilities. Who cares about hit points? And you could theoretically run overwhelming shield on Kyle. However, due to how this game works, if I were to run overwhelming shield on Kyle, every time I got revived, I would be revived with 1 hit point, which means if I take any damage from any source ever, I die until my shield's recharged. So while you could do this, this would be a rough gameplay and it would just require some skill and effort. And then of course, overwhelming defense is for no one. Don't use it. Gross. Here we have skill DPS. These are the characters in the game that I would use for skill DPS. I know Glay has a firearm, but half of her damage still comes from her skill. It does depend on the build with Glay. I don't play Glay, but I would still put her in this category. In my opinion, every character that is skilled DPS should rely on being skilled DPS. I do think that the optimal party, 2 DPS classes, a protector and a controller. A controller type would be someone like Vyessa, who controls the battlefield and deletes the ads when necessary. A protector would be someone like Ajax or Eugen in case the party needed to be protected or revived. This is the optimal loadout, and I think that in the first season of the game, we will have to do stuff like this because I really hope that we have harder content. At any rate, I have priorities or one, just pick one of the ones that say or for your build. And this is essentially what I think is the best way to build a shield descendant, what I think is the best way to build an HP descendant, and what I think a DPS should prioritize based off of if they are HP or shield. You can skill DPS just about anyone, and if you do, this is the column for that. This last column over here is to prioritize your own build, so that you can do whatever you want if you so inclined to use this spreadsheet. Sorry, I cannot make my spreadsheets pretty. I am not good at that. Or is Spear and Shield or Iron Defense. This is just in case you want to do skill damage with your Descendant. I do believe you need to pick one. If you don't know which one to pick, I did make a previous video on if you should pick Iron Defense or Spear and Shield depending on your Descendant. The second for shield should be increased shields, and the second for health should be increased hit points. And it goes up to or 5. So the Ore 5s are going to be the immunity modules that give you 10% damage mitigation. Defense and elemental resistances are different, and these mods give you 4600 resistance to that element. I do think that they have a purpose in some builds, so you should equip them, but only whenever they're your last thing to equip inside of a build, or if you're just generally having a hard time surviving a particular attack. If you are having an issue getting through Dead Bride, the Ice Globe is 100% elemental. If you if you max out one of these mods, you get about a 30% damage mitigation to Dead Bride's Bubble Orb, depending on what your elemental resistance already is. If you go from 11 or 10, the base, and you put on an elemental ice resistance module, I think it's called Antibody, you'll get about a 30% damage mitigation. I just know this from personal experience because I've done it. So the link to this spreadsheet will of course be in the comments if you want to use it. I know a lot of people are confused when to run what for survivability, so I just thought I'd make this for everyone. I thought I'd make this for everyone that wants it. Of course, you can download it and then edit it however you please. So for everyone isn't aware, base stats is what all of the modules get added upon, and they are adding. So first we have 0 modules on Ultima Viesa. If we see, we have a shield value of 1274. This value is 256 from the mods, 256 from the processor, plus 275 from the memory, plus 206 from the shields, plus 537 gives us 1274 shields. These are my base shields. Every amount of shield that I get from a module, and sometimes a skill, and sometimes a special module, is multiplied upon the Descendant shields. And now I have 3,209, which is 1,274, plus 151% of 1,274. That's how this works. This works for all of the stats. If I add another shield on, it is not going to add 3,209, it's going to add 1,274 because it's my base stats. That's why Kyle can be so good, especially if you don't use set bonuses. Here's the first Descendant data compendium. This was made by several people. So the maximum amount of shields I can have is 275 from each component, plus 300, giving us a 1,130 addition to our base stats, which would be 2,200 on Kyle. So the maximum amount of shields I'm getting with Kyle is going to be 10,000 if I try really hard. So I can have 20,000 magnetic force with Kyle, providing me about a 1.5 million damage maximum from the additional damage of the superconductivity thrusters. But it's actually less because you need 30% of the superconductivity thrusters to activate the skill. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm finally doing Twitch again. My Discord and Twitch and the spreadsheet will be in the description of the video. Y'all have a sick day. Peace out!